I am 82 years old now, and if I close my eyes, I can still feel the sticky warmth of my own blood pooling beneath me on that cold kitchen floor. The day my world didn't just break, it bled out completely, leaving me hollow in ways I never thought possible. My name is Sophia Reynolds, and I'm sitting here in the dim light of my living room, in this old Victorian house in Rhode Island, on Elmwood Avenue, the same faded armchair where I've spent countless evenings staring at the walls that hold too many secrets. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that dance like ghosts from my past. But it does nothing to warm the chill that's lived in my bones for over 50 years. Let me tell you a story that will make your heart ache, because mine still does every single day. Imagine trusting the two people you love most in the world, only to discover their betrayal in the cruelest way possible. A betrayal that stole not just your faith, but the tiny life growing inside you. And just when you think the pain can't get worse, picture learning that while you lay dying alone, they were off chasing their forbidden passion. Stay with me. You won't believe how the knife twists deeper with every revelation. And trust me, you'll want to know how I survived, or if I even did. It all began to unravel in the sweltering summer of 1973. Though the poison had been brewing in secret for years, hidden behind smiles and whispers, I was too trusting to notice. I was 30 years old then, married to my high school sweetheart Edward for 12 seemingly perfect years. We lived in a charming little bungalow in Connecticut, on Oak Street, surrounded by towering maple trees that turned fiery red in the fall, their leaves whispering secrets I wish I'd heard sooner. Edward was 34, a dedicated accountant with a gentle smile that crinkled at the corners of his eyes when he laughed, and a way of making me feel like the center of his universe. Every morning before he left for work, he'd kiss my forehead softly and whisper, "Sophia, I love you more than words can say." And every evening, as we shared dinner at our polished oak table, he'd take my hand across the plates, his thumb tracing circles on my skin, and repeat it like a sacred vow, "You're my everything, my love." I believed him with every beat of my heart. We were the couple everyone envied, childless still, after years of trying, but clinging to hope with doctor's appointments, fertility treatments, and quiet prayers under the stars. My younger sister Clara, 28 at the time, lived just a few blocks away on Pine Avenue. She was my closest confidant, my rock through the hard times, visiting almost daily with her infectious laugh, homemade apple pies, and endless encouragement. "You're the best sister anyone could have," she'd say, pulling me into a warm hug that always smelled of vanilla and home. Little did I know those hugs were laced with guilt, hiding the sharpest of daggers. That fateful July, everything seemed to align at last. On July 10th, 1973, the doctor confirmed what I'd suspected for weeks. I was pregnant, or long-awaited miracle after a decade of empty arms and shattered dreams. My hands trembled as I held the test results, tears of joy blurring the words. I floated home on a cloud of euphoria, already picturing tiny fingers and first steps, planning the perfect way to surprise Edward. Clara was the first person I told, over a pot of chamomile tea in my sunny kitchen that afternoon. Her eyes widened in what I mistook for pure delight, and she enveloped me in one of her signature hugs. "Oh, Sophia, this is everything you've ever dreamed of. Edward will be absolutely over the moon. We all will." We cried happy tears together, her hand resting gently on my still flat belly, promising to be the world's best aunt, or so I thought. That evening, Edward came home with a bouquet of red roses, his signature gesture, and when I shared the news, his face lit up like the 4th of July fireworks we'd watched just days before. He scooped me up carefully, spinning me around the living room with laughter echoing off the walls. "I love you so much, Sophia. We're finally going to be parents." This baby is our forever. His joy felt so real, his kisses so tender, that I pushed aside the fleeting doubts that had nagged at me lately. His longer hours at the office, the way he'd sometimes stare off into space with a distant look. For the next few weeks, life bloomed like the roses in my garden. Morning sickness came in waves, but I welcomed it as a sign of life thriving inside me. Edward and I spent evenings curled up on the porch swing, poring over baby name books under the golden sunset. Lunner for a girl, after our grandmother. James for a boy, like his father. We'd dream aloud about nursery colors, soft blue or sunny yellow, first holidays, and how our child would fill the quiet corners of our home with giggles. Clara was there almost every day, helping me knit tiny booties in soft wool, her needles clicking in rhythm with mine as we chatted about the future. "This little one is going to be so spoiled," she'd tease, her eyes sparkling. But now, looking back, I wonder if that sparkle was something else, nerves perhaps, or the thrill of her secret life. Subtle signs began to creep in, like shadows lengthening at dusk. Edward's late nights at the office multiplied, his excuses about urgent audits sounding thinner each time. Clara's visits grew sporadic. She'd counsel with vague reasons, a sudden migraine, an errand that couldn't wait. I'd feel a twinge of unease, but blame it on my pregnancy hormones, telling myself I was just being paranoid. After all, Edward still whispered, "I love you" every night as we drifted to sleep, his arm draped protectively over my belly. Then, on August 15th, 1973, a humid Thursday that started like any other, the facade cracked wide open. I was 3 months along, my belly just beginning to round, and I was buzzing with excitement for our first ultrasound the following week. Edward had pecked my cheek that morning, murmuring his usual "I love you" before heading out, but by late afternoon, he hadn't returned from what he'd called a quick errand to the store for milk and bread. Hours ticked by. I paced the kitchen, my worry mounting. Clara wasn't answering her phone, either unusual, as she always picked up on the second ring. To distract myself, I decided to tidy the hall closet, where coats hung haphazardly and forgotten items gathered dust. That's when I spotted Edward's briefcase tucked in the back. Strange, since he never left without it for work. A knot formed in my stomach. Curiosity, or perhaps some subconscious warning, compelled me to open it. I expected mundane files or receipts. Instead, letters spilled out, dozens of them, crammed into a hidden side pocket, dated as far back as 1970. My breath caught as I recognized Clara's elegant cursive. The first one, from March 1970. "My dearest Edward, last night in your arms was pure heaven. Sophia suspects nothing. Bless her trusting heart. I can't wait for our next stolen moment under the stars." My hands trembled violently as photos tumbled onto the floor. Edward and Clara, locked in an embrace on a sun-kissed beach, their smiles radiant and carefree. The back of one was inscribed, "Our secret paradise, May 1972. More letters unfolded, horrors, detailed plans for clandestine weekends, passionate declarations that echoed the very words Edward spoke to me daily. "I love you more than life itself," Clara wrote in one from 1971. Edward's reply, scrawled on office stationery, "You set my soul on fire, Clara. Sophia will never know, she's too pure for this, but I can't stop. You're my addiction." They'd been entangled for at least 3 years, right under my nose, perhaps in our own home during my visits to our mother, or in Clara's apartment when I thought Edward was working late. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. The room spun, my vision blurring with hot tears. How could they, Edward, who had stood before God and our families on our wedding day in June 1961, vowing eternal fidelity with tears in his eyes? "Clara, the little sister I'd shielded from playground bullies, shared whispered secrets with under the covers as children, the one who'd held my hand through our parents' funerals. Sobs racked my body as I crumpled to the kitchen floor, clutching my belly protectively. The pain was unbearable, not just emotional, but a sharp, twisting cramp deep inside, like my body rejecting the horror. Warmth spread between my legs. I looked down in terror to see blood soaking my dress, staining the linoleum in dark crimson pools. I was miscarrying, the stress and heartbreak too overwhelming for my fragile pregnancy to withstand. Panic surged. I crawled toward the phone on the wall, dialing Edward's office with blood-smeared fingers. No answer, just endless ringing. Clara's home line, nothing but silence. Alone, utterly alone, I collapsed back onto the floor, my cries echoing in the empty house. "Please, someone help," I whispered through gasps, thinking of the baby we'd already named Hope in our quiet dreams, the child who would have filled our home with light, now slipping away because of their selfish lies. Hours blurred into a haze of agony. I faded in and out of consciousness, visions of Edward's smiling face morphing into Clara's guilty eyes, their laughter mocking me from the shadows. Why weren't they here? Where had they gone while I bled out my future? When I awoke in the hospital bed the next morning, August 16, 1973, a compassionate nurse held my hand, her voice soft as she explained. Neighbors had heard my anguished screams through the open kitchen window and rushed over, finding me in a pool of blood and calling an ambulance just in time. The baby was Clara, precious hope, lost forever. Doctors ran tests, their faces grave. The miscarriage had caused internal scarring, making future pregnancies impossible. No children for me, ever, not after years of trying, not after this final, cruel blow. My womb, once full of promise, now a barren reminder of betrayal. Edward and Clara arrived hours later, bursting into the room with feigned panic. Edward's face pale, Clara's eyes red-rimmed from what I now knew were crocodile tears. "Oh, Sophia, my love, what happened?" Edward exclaimed, reaching for my hand. "We'll get through this together. I love you so much." Clara hovered behind him, dabbing at her cheeks with a handkerchief. "Sister, I'm here for you. This is devastating." But I couldn't meet their eyes. Shame burned through me like acid, not my shame, but theirs, reflected in every glance. How could I look at the man who'd whispered eternal love while entangled with my own blood, or the sister who'd baked pies in my kitchen, all while plotting her next rendezvous? The full truth clawed its way out in the agonizing days that followed. Each revelation a fresh wound that kept me hooked on the edge of despair, wondering if there was more horror to come. Back home on August 20th, 1973, I confronted them in our living room, the same space where we'd celebrated anniversaries and dreamed of family, with the letters and photos spread on the coffee table like evidence in a trial. I demanded answers. They crumbled under my gaze, tears flowing as confessions poured out. It had started innocently. They claimed a shared coffee in 1970 while I was away caring for our ailing mother, escalating to stolen kisses, then full-blown passion, meetings in seedy motels on the outskirts of town, hurried encounters in Clara's apartment when I thought Edward was at client dinners, the beach in May 1972, a quick romantic getaway disguised as Edward's business conference, while I stayed home nursing a cold, oblivious, and the night of my miscarriage, the ultimate knife twist. They'd sneaked off together to a rented cabin in the Berkshires for a passionate weekend, leaving without a word, assuming I'd be fine alone. We didn't know about the baby yet. Edward sobbed, kneeling at my feet. We were planning to end it soon. Clara nodded frantically. "It was a mistake, Sophia. We love you. We never meant to hurt you like this." Lies upon lies. The letters proved otherwise. Ongoing plans, no sign of remorse until caught. I screamed at them, my voice raw. You left me to die alone while you chased your filth. Your baby is gone because of you. The fallout was swift and merciless, each step dragging me deeper into isolation, leaving me desperate to know if I'd ever find peace. I filed for divorce by September 1973. The papers served on what would have been our 13th anniversary, a bitter irony that still stings. Clara fled to New York that fall, sending one last pleading letter in October. Dearest sister, forgive me, I love him, but I love you more. Let's rebuild. I burned it in the fireplace, watching the ashes scatter like my shattered trust. Edward fought the divorce at first, showing up at my door with flowers and pleas. Sophia, I love you. Clara was a mistake. Give us another chance. But his words rang hollow, poisoned by memory. By 1975, he married Clara, in a quiet ceremony I learned about through mutual friends' whispers. They had 2 sons, boys who grew up with the family I was denied, their laughter a phantom echo in my empty home. I never spoke to them again, their faces haunting my nightmares. Edward's crinkled smile twisted into deceit, Clara's hugs into betrayal. The years stretched into a lonely vigil, each one layering more sorrow, making me wonder if the pain would ever end or if I'd simply fade away. I sold the bungalow in 1975, unable to bear its tainted walls, and moved to this Rhode Island house in 1980, seeking solace in the crashing waves visible from my living room window. But the sea only mirrored my turmoil, endless, unrelenting. No children to comfort me, no grandchildren to bring light. Fertility specialists confirmed the scarring was permanent, and adoption agencies turned me away, citing my emotional instability after the trauma. Suitors came and went in the 1980s and 90s, but I couldn't trust again, couldn't bear the thought of another whisper of I love you turning to ashes. I filled my days with quiet routines, gardening in the backyard, volunteering at a local women's shelter where I shared fragments of my story to help others heal their wounds, reading romance novels that ended happily while mine remained a tragedy. But nights were the worst, lying awake in the silence, replaying the blood on the floor, the empty crib in my mind, wondering what my child would have looked like, sounded like. Holidays amplified the void, Thanksgivings alone with a single plate, Christmases staring at an unadorned tree, birthdays marked by silent toasts to the family that never was. Decades later, in 2025, I sit here in this armchair, the fire's embers glowing like fading hopes. Edward passed in 2010 from a heart attack. Poetic justice, since he shattered mine irreparably. Clara followed in 2018, claimed by breast cancer after a long battle. A distant cousin informed me, no final words or apologies in her will, just more silence. Do I regret not forgiving? Sometimes, in the quiet hours, I ponder it, the what-ifs of reconciliation, of meeting my nephews, but the scar tissue is too thick. Their betrayal didn't just steal my child, it stole my capacity for trust. Yet, I've carved out a fragile peace, leading support groups for betrayed spouses, where my story inspires resilience, tending a garden that blooms defiantly each spring, and whispering to the ghost of my unborn child by the fireside, I loved you enough for a lifetime. Little one, if you're still listening, dear friend, know this. Betrayal isn't a storm that passes, it's a scar that aches with every rain. Mine does, but in enduring, I've found a quiet strength, a testament that even the deepest wounds can teach us to stand taller. Life twists cruelly, but hearts, somehow, beat on. Even mine,